Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Bryce again, with part 2 of the Battle of Fredericksburg, which occurred on December 11th to December 15th of 1862, which ended in a massive Confederate victory and a crushing and humiliating Union defeat. Last we left off was the Union sacking of the town of Fredericksburg. Today, we are going to focus on the main fighting, particularly on the left and the right and the center of the Union Army during this brutal and bloody engagement. Okay, so after the sacking of Fredericksburg by Federal forces, the Confederate Army, under the command of Robert E. Lee and over 60 to 50,000 men, had arrived at the city of Fredericksburg and had set up fortifications and defenses on the left and the right and the center. The center being the most strategically important and well-defended position, being protected by a stone wall in an area called Marie's Heights. Now, the fighting started on the south side, but before that, the General Burnside had commanded three-prong attacks, one on the left commanded by General Meade, along with many other federal forces, here we go, under General Franklin, would be here, which were near Massaponax Creek and Prospect Hill, where they would engage Jackson's Confederates, and along here in the main area at Fredericksburg and at the Stone Wall by Sumner and Hooker's troops. All around here, the attacks would be supported by the heights with the massive Union artillery. The attack began right here on Jackson's line. Now, many people claim that this would have been the perfect place for the Union Army to win. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, at the first part of the fighting here on this side, it was already horrendous. It already gone bad because one Confederate artillery under the command of Major Pelham, the famous artillery commander who would be killed in 1864, had one gun and one lone crew firing at the Federal troops under W.F. Smith and Reynolds. Amazingly, they managed to hold off this entire Union division by themselves because the Federals, most of them green, believed that they were under fire by 4 to 8 artillery pieces. An example of how fast they were firing is the letter from Private George W. Shreve of Stewart's Horse Artillery. He wrote saying, "The unexpected presence of our guns so close to them seems to paralyze them, threw them into disorder. Instead of rushing us and overwhelming us with their massive numbers, they were evidently afraid of us, judging by no doubt we had a strong force concealed." Eventually, Pelham had to fall back because he ran out of ammunition, and finally the Federals were finally able to advance. Well, what happened then is that the Confederate artillery commander, Porter Alexander, had a brilliant idea, basically putting his guns from this area down spiral, managing to get a perfect overview of this entire force and blowing them down with impunity and having a bit of a longer range into canister shot when the Federals got that close. Um, he wrote to General Robert E. Lee after Lee did not like this idea. He wrote, "General, a chicken will not live on that field when we open fire." And that was evident by Confederate Captain David Gregg McIntosh, one of the Confederate captains in the artillery. He wrote, "A raise of the hand of the fatal tree is reached and the 14 guns let loose at the same instant, and then on is load and fire, load and fire, load and fire, as fast as sponge, rammer, and lanyard can do their work." Now, the reason why he said the fatal tree is because 800 yards was a tree. Now, this tree was where they would open fire at the Federals, so when the Federals got past this tree or at the tree, they would be able to fire at their exact range to deadly precision, and that's what happened. Hundreds of Federals being mowed down by artillery that they can't even do much about. Another example of the brutality of the fighting was on the left side, was on this part right here where Gregg, Thomas, and Lane and Archer were. Now, right here, During the fighting, General Meade had found a gap between the Confederate lines, right here where you see this part of water on the map. This place was under command by Brigadier General Maxcy Gregg from South Carolina and his South Carolina Brigade. Now, Gregg did not know that the Federals were coming, and so his troops were still eating breakfast. Well, what happened was that Meade's troops, and the thing is, Meade had the smallest brigade. He had very few men with him, and he somehow managed to punch a hole through the Confederate line. Gregg was caught by some complete surprise because he thought that Meade's troops, who were coming towards his men, were other Confederates, until his men saw that they were wearing complete blue uniforms. They threw down their breakfast and everything else and grabbed their rifles and opened fire. Gregg, thinking that those were the Federals were Confederate skirmishers, kept riding up and down the line screaming for his men to hold fire. Well, this would be his fatal mistake and his end, because what would happen is that a Union sharpshooter would find him and kill him. He fired a round into Maxcy's chest, and Maxcy would die. And with the loss of their commander, the Confederates completely fell back and were broken, and many of them were taken prisoner during the rout. Now, this was the part. Now, many people would think, and many believe, that this was where the Union Army would win. That is so true. If it wasn't for a certain commander, Meade knew that if he had more troops, he could expose the flank and flank the entire Confederate line, making Lee supposedly bring more troops from here down here to support Jackson, Taliaferro, and Early. So he sent a messenger to find the nearest body of Union troops to help him. Well, he found troops under the command of Union General Dulmer. Dulmer basically refused to help him, saying, "Who in the world are you? I'm a division commander, you're a division commander, we're in two separate corps, I take my orders from someone else." Now when Meade was told that that the guy would not help him, Meade rode down there personally, and Meade was known to have the shortest anger. Whenever it wasn't gone his way, he would light a fuse. One eyewitness, when Meade got to the guy, he was screaming at him, cursing him up and down, saying every single curse word in the book, every insult. And an eyewitness said that the rocks were could be terrified of Meade and would never want to be near him in this argument. And because of the guys not helping him, the Confederates were able to send reinforcements, and Jackson led a counterattack, and the Federals were completely driven off from the flank, leaving their dead and wounded, and losing their only opportunity to really win this battle. Now here on the center of Marye's Heights, the Confederate Union forces would be attacking 17 to 15 times with different brigades. The first brigade was a Gibraltar brigade. They were ordered to take the Confederate artillery position here on the Telegraph and Plank Road, including Hazel Run. Well, the Confederates, with the stone wall, were waiting for the Federals. So you had thousands of Confederate infantry waiting for the blue line to come. And the Federals never expected this. They just thought it was the Confederate artillery. And so as they're marching towards the Confederates, they were completely horrified that out of nowhere, tens of thousands of Confederate infantry stand up and aim and fire their rifles into the blue mass, catching the Federals by complete surprise. And the thing is that the Confederates have complete cover, and the Federals don't. So hundreds of Federals are being mowed down by artillery and musket fire. The Gibraltar Brigade basically gets massacred. Very few are able to make it out alive or unscathed. One of the infantry units that was sent to support the Gibraltar Brigade and the division was the famed Irish Brigade, made out of Irish immigrants from Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania. These men were known by all to be brave and stubborn soldiers, for they had seen combat, First Bull Run, and many others, and they had made a name for themselves. being some of the bravest men besides the Iron Brigade and other troops, some of the bravest men in the Army of the Potomac. Well, what happened was that when the Irish Brigade were sent forward, they had to cross, along with others, this little stream, which was supported by little planks. So as they're trying to get to the Confederate lines, they have to get out of formation, run in a straight line through these one at a time, and then stop and reform their line. Meanwhile, the Confederate artillery is pounding them into submission as they're trying to reform their ranks. Once the Irish reform and advance, they are getting massacred by Confederate musket fire, and this is where the sad parts of the battle occurred when one of the Confederate units at the road under General Cobb from Georgia. In his Georgia brigade. This unit was the 24th Georgia Infantry. Well, the 24th Georgia was made of, just like the Irish Brigade, out of Irish volunteers and immigrants. And so you have there's two units, one brigade and a regiment, firing upon each other from the same country, all Irish, Protestant and Catholic. It was one of the saddest moments of the war and just of the battle entirely. Irish killing Irish, just like American killing American. Well, what happened after all that? The Irish Brigade took cover, lay down, and opened fire upon the Confederates. And as they're doing this, they are taking musket volley after musket volley and artillery pounding after artillery pounding, and so they fall back, and they lose nearly the whole brigade. 545 Irish are left on the field, dead or wounded and missing. Now, during the fighting, one of the Irishmen, Captain William McCarter, of the 116th Pennsylvania Volunteers, wrote of the brutality of the fighting. He wrote, "Every third man had fallen, and along some parts of the line every second soldier had been killed or wounded. To make matters still worse, we had lost nearly all of our officers." The fighting was so gruesome and so brutal that nearly every regimental commander in every brigade at Maurice Heights was killed, wounded, or missing. And so basically the privates and the NCOs had to lead regiments or brigades, along with brigadier generals who were also being shot down to pieces. Another member of the 116th Pennsylvania, Chaplain E.T. Rowe, wrote about the horrendous amounts of the wounded and their sad state. "Ghastly and bloody wounds met the eye in every direction. Some had their eyes shut out, The tongues of some were swollen out of their mouths. Some had their bodies shot through. Others were torn and mangled by shell and shot, and all were crowded wherever there was any space." Basically, the entire city of Fredericksburg was converted into one mass hospital. Every church, every building, every store, the entire city was made into just a massive hospital for the wounded. Now, during the fighting at Maurice Heights, General Lee was being incredibly worried. And the reason why he was worried was because if Burnside kept sending mass wave after mass wave after mass wave of Federal soldiers, Lee would run out of ammunition and he wouldn't have enough troops to plug in the gap. And the reason why we believe that, because he didn't want to get troops from Jackson, Taliaferro, Hill's, and Early's men from here to here. The same thing with Pickett and Hood. Well, General Longstreet, in replying to Lee, because Lee asked him if he could hold his line, Longstreet said, "General, if you put every man now on the other side of the Potomac in that field to approach over the same line and give me plenty of ammunition, I will kill them all before they reach my line." In response to this, General Lee said his famous quote, It is good that we love war, for we should be too fond of it." Sorry if I didn't say it correctly. But now after that fighting, General Hooker pleaded to Burnside to stop the attacks, and Burnside just kept on denying him. Now Hooker and Burnside absolutely hated each other. The men could not stand one another. But at some point, finally, Burnside just stopped the attacks. One of the other federal commander, General Darius Couch, who wrote this after watching the constant charges and the brutality of the fighting in a church tower, wrote, "The whole line, the whole plain was covered with men, prostrate and dropping. The live men running there and their front and running here and there in front, closing upon each other, and the wounded coming back. The command seemed to be mixed up. I had never before seen fighting like that. Nothing approaching it in terrible uproar and destruction." Private James Haggard of the 1st South Carolina would write about the of the aftermath, hearing the wounded and the dying. Now, before I read the letter, imagine you are a Confederate soldier, here or here, and you have to stand there or sit there sleeping or trying to sleep, and you have to listen to the groans and the screams of 12,000 men. I mean, 13,000 Union and Confederate soldiers just asking for help and just slowly dying. It's recorded that many of these men would never ever forget that in their lives until their death. Private James Haggard of the 1st South Carolina wrote about that. He wrote, when night descended upon the bloody field, nearly 1,500 dead soldiers lay in an area of 2 acres in front of our lines, 3 or 4 times as many of the wounded held in darkness, and a dismal concert for assistance which could not be rendered, or they perished in the cold from neglect. During the nighttime, until the 15th of December, there was minor skirmishing and minor artillery fighting between the two sides during the night, because some federal soldiers were not able to escape back down to the city, and so they had to blend in with the dead. So they had to sleep or fight the Confederates in the middle of the night using the bodies of the dead. One of these units was the famed 20th Maine under Lieutenant Colonel Chamberlain and Colonel Aries, the former commander of the 20th Maine, who would become a general at some point during the war. And during that time, Union recovery teams came out there braving the random fire between both sides, grabbing and dragging the wounded. Now, at some point in the daytime, the one Confederate, and this is possibly one of the greatest acts of self-heroism and just love for another person throughout the entire war. A South Carolina sergeant named Joseph Kirkland of the 12th South Carolina Volunteers, who was a sergeant at this time and was a veteran of many of Lee's engagements, could no longer stand hearing the pain and the suffering of the wounded, even if they were Yankees. So what he did is that he asked his comrades to give him their canteens, and he asked his commanding officer if he could go over the stone wall to help the Union soldiers. Now, they thought he was going to get shot, but they let him do that anyway. And so the first Yankee that he ran to was a wounded member of the Irish Brigade. Now, General Burnside was watching this through his binoculars and ordered a sniper to kill him because he thought that Kirkland was looting the dead. Well, the sharpshooter didn't kill him, instead looked at him through his binoculars and saw the mercy and the compassion that he was giving to the Union soldier. And both sides watched in awe and amazement at what Kirkland was doing. And they were disappointed in themselves because finally someone had the determination and the bravery to show compassion and love for the other side. After that, he would be promoted to a lieutenant, and he would sadly not live to see the end of the war. But after these brazen attacks, the Federals left on December 15th, leaving the city in the hands of the Confederates, and the city had to bury all the dead and wounded Yankees who perished. Um, and that's about it. Thank you guys for watching this. I know I made some mistakes in a lot of this, and it's just that I can't talk at times clearly. But I just thank you all for watching this to the end. If you like more of this content, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you want more notifications on new videos that come out. Share this with a buddy. Please spread the word of this channel. I would greatly appreciate that. Please watch to the end of this. And just thank you guys. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Next week, on Monday, I will post a video about the Union and Confederate casualties of the Battle of Fredericksburg. Thank you. Have a nice day. God bless.